Good evening, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, all you boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, grannies and gators, and everybody in between. For a really late one tonight. It's been a jam packed day. I started my first stream at 7 o'clock this morning, and I was kind of trying to get it in between everybody else's streams, didn't want to overlap. So here we are late at night. For those of you guys that are carrying over from Shadow's show, thanks for doing that. And there's kind of a bit of a method to our madness of why I was pestering him to pop on over here for a few minutes. So I'm hoping that he's actually going to be able to not be too swamped to get over here and talk with us for a couple minutes, because we're going to be doing something in between the holiday breaks to kind of fill in the gap. So we've got some ideas. We want to talk to you guys about that a little bit. So he'll be popping in a little bit. So I'm going to kind of start doing this Friday night kind of wrap up so people can kind of get a recap of what we did over the week and see what they want to go and pick through, what they're most interested in, and give people some things that they can prepare for over the weekend that they might want to do early on in the week moving forward. There's always some events, things like that going on on the weekends. So this is kind of a new thing that I'm going to start doing every Friday night to kind of recap and give you guys some things to ponder and consider, and maybe if you need to get ready. So that's kind of it. So I'm going to dabble in a little bit of a couple of news things here. Oh, perfect. Speak of the devil and who should appear, Mr. Dave.
Hi, Wade. How are you?
Oh, long time no talk.
Yeah. It's been a couple days.
Yeah. So thanks for taking the time to pop over. I know you've had a long day too. A couple things. I'm not going to keep you long. I kind of wanted to touch base with you a couple of questions, and then we'll get into the real meat of the matter. I want to ask you, over the last week or two, have you noticed a serious escalation in the energy of particularly the media and the news from both sides? Are you noticing anything like that here ramping up to the
Um, you're talking about left-wing corporate media and then the alternative media, both of them?
Right. For myself, I'm seeing a lot more cooperation, a lot of coming together, good and bad. And I think that that's kind of an escalation. And I'm just noticing it myself. And I was just wondering if you tapped into that.
I've noticed a lot on social media, particularly X, mostly political. It's mostly liberal bots, I think, that are trying to get the message out to people. And this lets me know that I believe there's an election coming. They're really ramping up their messaging. I think Trudeau is trying to get the messaging out. They're doing something about housing. They made some big announcement in Vancouver today, but he kept getting tripped up by those pro-Hamas demonstrations everywhere
Yes.
he goes, and the ceasefire nonsense and all of that stuff. And my stance on that is simply, we have no place in
I
that
agree.
situation, and I don't want to see any of that come to our country. Although it has been in the universities and in the streets even, and uh, that the great replacement theory, my friend. I mean, it's
Well,
in action right now.
I had a really deep thought about this afternoon, and I think I've maybe come up with a counter to their great reset idea. And I'm thinking, no, it's time for a real reboot, a great reboot, not a reset, and start booting some of these parasites out of the seats that they occupy that influence our day-to-day lives. Because we got, as you said, we've got no business in any of this nonsense and anywhere else on the planet when we cannot look after our own selves here in this country. So I'm not calling for Canada to become isolationist. No, we need to get friendly again, and we can't be friendly until we're fixed. So that's kind of my take and stance on all of that too.
Well,
But
trade deals, obviously,
oh,
but
of course.
we got a lot of fixing to do here, culturally speaking, because of this mass influx of immigration, whether it's legal or not. We know that Roxham Road is still to this day open for business, even though Trudeau claimed to have shut it down a year ago now. Undocumented immigrants, which means illegal immigrants coming into Canada still, like heavily. And in the United States, the same thing is going on. And this is destroying the cultural fabric of our country. And all that leads me to think is to go back. I'm not sure if it was just after he got elected, Trudeau, or just before, but he said that Canada will become the world's first post-nation state.
Yeah.
And nobody knew what he was talking about back then.
Yeah.
Nobody like, well, what does that even mean? Right? But now we know.
Yeah.
Here we
100%.
are.
You
Yeah.
know, I was privy to take part in a roundtable of independent journalists, some credited, some with decades of experience, and some of our independents, and it was a nice mix. And I think that we're entering into a time of the most educated period of our people in our society, just by necessity. And I think that that's going to be making a lot of change, man. Just a little bit is going to kind of set up the whole rest of my show after you pop off, because there's so many of these things that are converging. And that's, I think, what is adding to the cacophony out there. The trolls, the bots, are becoming ever increasingly active and vitriolic and abusive and creative as well. They've done a lot of infiltrating in their little downtime, so we're seeing a lot of that, a lot of surprising stuff. Not surprising to me, but I'm noticing it's gaugeable at this point. So I think that we're in for some interesting times going into 2024, and
Wow.
that's something
Yeah.
that we're going to have a little bit of fun with. I think when we had coffee last week, we started to meet, talk this out a little bit, and yeah, I'm going to be doing, and I'm hoping that you're going to be taking part in as a bunch of these as well. But I'm gathering quite a list of pundits, and we're going to be doing this little bit of a odes to the conspiracy theory prognostication prediction. What's in store for 2024? We're going to look back at all the best of the best conspiracy theorists, good, bad, and otherwise, the Elon Musks, Tucker Carlson's, Alex Jones, and we're going to hit our best shots for 2024. And we're going to have a pretty esteemed list of pundits from all across North America already at this point that are going
Hey,
to be
listen,
taking this.
when we do this thing, how many of us are there going to be? Because I can imagine there's going to be a lot of crosstalk, and we should also probably throw our agendas out to each other before we go live, because I think a lot of us are going to have the same kind of idea. So if one person's got an idea that I've got, maybe I could go ahead and give mine a bit of a swerve or something. Because to be honest, when it comes to predicting all this nonsense, bro, you know what? I think I probably know, but then they always hit us with some kind of a curveball in the dirt. And
Well,
it,
this is the beautiful part of it, because we all see through different lenses, right? So, it'll be interesting when we do the same thing again. What's in store for 2025? We'll be able to compare notes, and I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant. And
that
I was
means if we're
thinking,
not in a gulag by then,
yeah,
which
or
is possible.
Armageddon, for that matter too, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
But I believe in where we're going, not where we're at, and I see the world changing at a bigger scale than where we're at.
Well, you
And
said to me during coffee the other day that you've got a far more optimistic outlook now
yes,
than you did even 2 or 3 months ago. Why is that?
well, that goes into you know, now, and people mistake this as a political endorsement. It's not. I'm watching history repeat itself again. With this petition for a vote of non-confidence, we are seeing what we expect and should happen, because historically these are the things that unseat the governments. If you go back to 1973, this is pretty much every time the baton was passed from one side to the other, it was through this process. So I don't think Trudeau can escape this process. He's going to remain the leader, but the question remains there. And that's not, saying Pierre is going to be the guy. But here's the thing: Pierre is going to have to realize the winds of international political change, and he is going to have to, without that international change, I would have far less optimism. But when we're seeing what's happening in Venezuela, in Austria, in Hungary, and all of these places now, and day by day here, I'm watching nations reject the WHO and their sovereign coups that they're pulling through their pandemic policies.
Well, the
So
problem with that, though, I mean, like, it's funny that you say that because all of these countries are not part of most of the countries are not part of the Western world, right? G7
right,
countries. Um,
right,
I would be far more encouraged, and I'm not saying that I'm not optimistic either. I mean, I do believe that we win no matter what, but um, I would be more encouraged if countries like France, and we know Italy is looking good with Giorgia Meloni in there. I think that she's probably the most popular leader in Europe right now, the last I read. But
yeah,
I'd be more encouraged if countries like France and Germany and the UK to some extent is waking up a little bit, but they've all got these globalist puppets as leaders in those countries right now. And they need to be deposed. I'm very happy about what happened in the Netherlands a couple of weeks ago, but that could go on for another few months while they try and work out some sort of a governing arrangement there, because they've got all those parties with so few seats. But it's good to see that the people are finally starting to stand up and say no to globalism because I think that's what this is, you know.
100%. And there's a couple of things that are starting to again that are the stars aligning. I believe we've got Jacob Rothschild on record saying that if the NATO loses the war in Ukraine, the one world order is done. And this is literally what we're seeing playing out in real time. So there's that, and then there's the other factor that people are overlooking. Putin bad, Putin bad. Okay, great. Yes, right. But only 28 nations sanctioned Russia. Meanwhile, 143 are stepping up to do business with Russia. Where is the future of that going to go? And where does that leave the collapsing West? It's either fix it or we're going to the Stone Age. And this is where I believe 100% that us being the magnificent, adapt, improvise, and overcome parasite cancers of the cabal here in the West are eating them up from the inside out and forcing them to do things that they absolutely do not want to do, and they are losing. It is over. I do believe the one world. That doesn't mean the hurting is over, but I think Polyev is going to be forced to adjust the winds of his sails to accommodate where the rest of the world is going, because we will have to force him to, and we will
Yeah.
be educated at that point. And this is again not expecting remedy, because any one of these guys historically, every time the baton is changed, roo rah rah, they never go back and undo any of the garbage. That's where we have to start,
Yeah.
right? And this
And it's
going to
funny. I
tell you
was talking. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was talking at the end of my show just now about how, one thing that you'd mentioned just as I popped on here. Am I starting to see more aggressive kind of behavior from media, whether it's our side or their side? What I'm seeing is more aggressive behavior, and not in a bad way, just more questions coming from regular people, whether
yeah,
it's in the form of a meme or whether it's in the form of a question. Like, what is this exactly? Even JJ McCullough on X today was talking about cameras in airports, and he goes, why do we need so many anyway? And all I said was, yeah, why, JJ? Right?
well,
But he's actually asking the question, which is a good thing. So the more people who are activated now will continue to be that way, and of course, they will spawn more other people who are willing to step up and start asking questions, and then that spawns a grassroots movement where we start taking over the school boards again. We start taking over the town and city councils again. And I think that creates a great awakening in terms of, I mean, how long have we been asleep at the wheel when it comes to civic politics? Good
90
God. I
years.
mean, yeah, like 30%,
90
35%
years.
of people from 90 years. They come out and they vote in these things and they don't care because there's no political parties actually represented in civic politics. So who am I going to vote for? I have to do research now and find out, forget that. I'll just go ahead and mark an X next to the name I've heard before. That's pretty much the way it works in civic politics. But maybe now people are going to do a little bit more research and they're going to see, okay, are you a globalist? Do you stand for the 2LX whatever movement? Do you believe in the Green New Deal? Do you believe in $8 trillion of transfer? I believe Klaus Schwab actually said that just a couple of days ago. We need $8 trillion in order to, like, what?
They are so drunk on their own Kool-Aid already. And that's the problem. That's all they're drinking is their own Kool-Aid, right? And that jug of Kool-Aid is getting emptier and emptier and emptier. So you've got all of these big fish swimming around drinking a tiny little bucket of Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Right?
And they're all and they all want it for themselves now too. So what we're starting to see as well is the cabal fall apart from the inside,
They're
right?
throwing
And
each other under the bus. They're
yeah,
sacrificing each other, and they're drawing the short straw on which is the best escape plan C, D, and E already at this point. And at the end of the day, whether it's in your or my lifetime or not, this is over, and they won't be able to hide long enough, far enough to outlive this, because most of these creatures are ancient already. So this is going to end with them. And we're going to see people, move to a point in technology that they're comfortable with. I think that it's going to be a much calmer place if we get through the insanity of this collapse. That's the scary part, because
well,
they're not.
people are they're getting tired, man.
Yeah,
Um, so that's why we need to keep bringing new people in. Here's something interesting I was just thinking about as we were talking about the overlords eating themselves. What came to mind was Disney losing another $330 million. It was reported over Q2 this year. And I think that they're going to continue to lose money at a horrendous rate. And my question is now, Elon told the CEO of Disney to go F himself during that New York Times thing a couple of weeks ago, like flat out. No, you're not going to bribe me. You're not going to hold me hostage with money. Go F yourself. Bob, what's his name? I forget uh, the CEO of Disney.
Sager or whatever.
Yeah. I think that if Disney is not willing to course correct going forward and getting rid of all this woke nonsense in their movies and start actually making wholesome, fun, family entertainment again, I think they're going to go bankrupt in 2024,
100%.
which would be a
Here,
sad, sad thing. Disney, for almost 100 years now, has been this bright light for people, for families, right? Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck. I mean, let's go back almost 100 years. We're talking about some of the movies that they've made are classic. They bring back memories for us, warm memories of our
that's
childhood.
never going to die. That's never going to die, Shadow, and it's
No,
going to
I
hold
know
on
that.
to
I know that. But just
right?
itself, Disney could actually go under if they continue on this path. Disney.
And it's not just those guys though. And this is again brings up another important factor. Everybody knows about boycotts, and typically that's what we would do. People would stop spending their money until they changed their tune, apologize, and then people would go back and spend their money. No, what's happening now is when people are removing their dollar, they're removing it permanently. And this is why we're seeing such catastrophic damage to all of these DEI supercorps that have been extorting everybody that works, within the system underneath of them. And that is, again, it's the one leg at a time of the octopus being eaten by the ants.
It's
And
going to
that
take a while to purge all of that stuff too. I mean, they're firmly implanted, they're in place, but they're getting exposed.
100%.
One at a time. Like what happened with the presidents of the universities in the congressional testimony just this past week. Harvard, the big schools down there, showing that they are arrogantly racist, and they have no
100%.
problem saying that. Amazing to me. So that is going to strike fear into so many other universities down there. Harvard, Wayne,
It's
think
too
about
late.
that.
The tide is going out, all of them, and that's the point, right? The tide is going out on all of this, because every time there's a moral victory and an ethical victory, to step back, and that begets the other. Courage begets courage, and this is that. Everybody, we for so long we thought we needed masses, and when all we needed was the act of organized, and 3% makes change, and that's where again, from 5 years ago when I started to where we're at now, I'm seeing media coalitions. I'm talking with Europe now about a coalition coalition over there that we're bringing together here. So now we're seeing continental coalitions of independent media. That is a global environment that is replacing all of that cancerous stuff, and we're never going to beat them in their arena, so we just build our own arenas, right? And this is the secrets to what has been happening. I remember 3 years ago, when COVID lockdowns were just like, it was just the most absolute absurdity of it. I was driving in Manitoba, and on a Sunday, Easter Sunday, I'm in a barn full of 250 people that have never been political in their life. They're breaking the law to come and listen to me about how to build around that to get by it. And looking at not fighting it, they're not fighters, but they will build roads around it. And now this is just all analogies, broad strokes, folks, whether it's Disney or Bud Light or Gillette or this group or that group. This is happening across the freaking planet. And that's where we shouldn't fear. We should be looking after what we got, people in our communities, and that's the path forward. The collapse and this kind of stuff, be celebrating, but it's we're a long ways from done yet. These guys, these clone troopers, they work for Darth Vader, Lord Schwab, so they are mortified. They'll go, he'll just
Let me
end
ask you
them if
this.
they don't serve. So
The movement, the freedom movement in our country, I've noticed a lot of people from outside of the country, uh, and you've probably talked to a lot of people outside the country also, when they look at Canada's freedom movement, they go, "Wow, that's." They're not so thrilled with it, and the reason for that is because it's so new for this country. It's so immature still. It needs to grow up, and it needs to grow up fast. And I know that there's a lot of people who are thinking about ways to do that. How do we do
mhm,
that? We talk about the Freedom Convoy. I mean, seriously, that only happened a couple of years ago, even though it seems entrenched in our history now. It's only not even 2 years. And
mhm.
that movement begot a lot of freedom. A lot of people yelling freedom, shirtless in the -30 kind of thing. That football fan style of protest. And I know there's a lot of people who go, "Yeah, that's great. We needed that then, but now it's time to grow up this movement and go and fight these people in the arenas that we need to fight them in. Not necessarily the proper channels, because we know that they control the proper channels, but in the arenas we need to fight them in the rooms that we need to go to fight these politicians in. Um, and so we have to start dressing better. We have to start conducting ourselves with more decorum and respect, even if we don't feel it inside. And I'm not talking about selling out here. That's not what I mean.
Screwing up and taking responsibility.
Yeah.
Right, and
Now,
it's all part of it. And one of the things I think people may underestimate about that, as new as it is, it's still consistent with the. This is one of the other things that Trudeau said: Canadians have no core identity. I call bullpucky on that too. One of the things that I said early on in this assault on our country was that if Canadians stand up, every single time Canadians have stood up in our history, as short as it is, the rest of the world stood up and followed. And that was something that I harped about a lot early on in all of this. And now what do we have? We have Christine Anderson, right? Being here a couple of times, shedding light around the rest of the world. We have people like Clayton Morris on Redacted, who's
yeah,
making a cause and purpose out of exposing this kind of stuff. We've got Tucker in Calgary twice. We've and that's just the beginning. The names that people recognize. We've got Bruce McGray, who I had the privilege of interviewing. 57 years with the FAA as an inspector, and he's rolled over and he has blown the whistle, like taking down the corruption. He said, when I spoke with him, he would have never done that if it hadn't been for the trucker convoy.
let me
These
ask
are
you.
the
We've got guys like Joe Rogan. Like he talked about Canada last week on one of his shows and said, "Yeah, you live in that communist frozen shithole." I don't even know who he had on his show. Obviously, a Canadian guy, and
it's
that
a consensus around the planet, but
yeah, that one line that he said on his show, because he gets consistently 13 or 14 million people who listen to each episode of that. Think about the size and the impact that his show has worldwide, and the recognition of something like that, right? I mean, and how it impacts us as Canadians to think like Joe Rogan thinks we're a frozen communist shithole. Oh no. So will that motivate us, or will that just make us go, I hate Joe Rogan? I mean,
I think that motivates the honest Canadians, and the those that are bought into the programming. They do the clone trooper drone dance, right? It's really the same, and it's become so blatantly clear. It's very hard for people to pretend to be on one side, to pretend to ride the middle anymore. And people are realizing again that we don't need the masses anymore. If somebody is sketchy, we keep moving forward, right? And we're getting better and more concise and organized.
more
And again,
discerning. We got to be more discerning, man.
part of
Right? With
being
the people that we bring
growing
along.
up into
Yep.
the responsibility of fixing our own country. And here's the scariest part of all, guys, is if we don't fix it, that means somebody else will sooner or later down the road. And I don't know if we would necessarily want that outcome either. So I am right now, I'm really stoked that, if we can avoid the Biden apocalypse of stupidity on the planet. That's a whole other discussion. Then I think the future is going to be much more clearer very soon.
Do you think there's going to be an election in Canada next year?
Absolutely, absolutely, sooner than
You see,
later.
I think that there's going to be one, and then I think there's not going to be one. And I just don't know which way. Like, it's all about Jagmeet, and I just don't know which way that guy's going to go.
I think it's actually more all about the bioweapons program agenda than Jagmeet.
Bioweapons.
If we go into another lockdown and COVID measures and free cash for the world, if they get away with that,
No way.
then I think we're in trouble. Then it allows for a steal in the election just through confusion and
Not even a
just
steal, just a cancellation, or we got to delay the election because we got sunspot activity. A solar flares knocked out the internet, right? So now we're getting into the predictions for 2024, which
yeah, we need to nip that in the bud.
right.
But what the American machine does, a little parrot boy, sparkly socks Farquaad, is usually trying to capitalize and govern his narrative around himself. So he bombed at COP28. The climate cult bombed at COP28 again,
Well,
signifying.
well, now before you say that, this is something I was going to bring up earlier because you were talking about, how the world is now starting to wake up and see what's going on. They had COP28 and 200 nations agreed we need to do more to fight climate change. And I just went, oh my goodness, like this kind of thing, it's got to stop. But I do believe that the more they harp about this, the more people are just going to become upset by it,
So
especially in winter countries like Canada, where heat pumps don't make a damn of difference because they don't work when it's minus 30. So
here's what I would say to that. Very specifically, Canada makes the cleanest hydrocarbon energy fuels on the planet. They're
right.
right. They need to do more. We do not, and we should stop paying for them to do more. They
Yeah.
do need to do more, but we
Well,
need to stop assuming the guilt of the planet for this and look after ourselves. Because literally, without energy, you go back to the caves. So that is what
yeah.
access to that makes us what we are. Taking it away will destroy us too, and it's unjustly being taken away. But that's going to disappear too. Trudeau lost in the Supreme Court with the pipelines. So again, more of that downward spiraling trajectory for their agendas, and that's just the beginning of him losing. So
So
That's my.
what starts the election then?
I think this
What is
vote of non-confidence drives the bus.
you're talking about the petition now?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
All
I
right.
think
Well,
that's going to drive the bus.
it's not binding, just so everybody
No.
knows. I mean, yes,
No.
it's not binding. I mean, yeah. So if you get what was that, 325, 330,000 signatures now, that doesn't mean they have to have a vote of non-confidence in the House. What it means is that what's her name, the MP who is supporting this petition? I can't remember. She's from Peterborough, Michelle Ferrari.
Ferrari.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She can bring that petition in, and I'm hoping that it gets to 500,000 because it closes on Christmas Eve. If she carries that thing into the House of Commons and she's waving 500,000 signatures because you cannot sign this twice, there's no duplication. She's waving 500,000 signatures of Canadians who are so upset with Justin Trudeau that they want a vote of non confidence. Those MPs are going to be shaking in their boots. It's non
You're
binding, but
right.
it does need to be brought up in the House of Commons, right? And so think about all of those ridings that were won by 500 votes or even 1,000 votes. When you're talking about 500,000, those guys are going to be petrified. And the liberals at that point are going to be scurrying to save their own political hides. And that means they desert Justin Trudeau. It's like rats leaving a sinking ship. It's beautiful. The NDP may see something they can gain here as the polls draw tighter between the Liberals and the NDP. I think I saw one from Angus Reid a couple of weeks ago that showed them both at 22%. So if the NDP can somehow manage to get 10 extra seats out of this, that's going to be better for them. Or
No.
is it? Does Jagmeet want more seats, or does he want to stay in this powerful position that he's in right now?
I think this is where we have potentially to see something really unusual happen, and I think the hubris of this dictator is we're seeing it here over the news in the last couple of days. They're angling, they're talking leadership. Yeah, they're all endorsing for Trudeau to remain, this, that. So they're fortifying their and preparing for the election. We all know that they're preparing for the election. The campaign fund driving has been going on. So this tells us it's going to happen. But everything that happened that left him in power was based on 29% of the population voting, right?
Did you
And
say
that's
20, 29?
29%, right?
No, no,
So
no,
there was
no, no.
very little of the Canadian population actually voted
No,
in.
no, no, no. It's 59% of the people voted. There's never been a federal election with less than 50% of the people voting. You can look that one up, my friend.
I'll have to, but regardless, it's still getting down to that. They're drinking their own Kool-Aid and the jug is getting emptier. And we're going to see through the organizations of the network, simply because they've forced us to rebuild communities, these communities are also voting blocks. This is how you were seeing Danielle Smith, doing what she's doing in Alberta. The same endeavor is going on in other provinces. This starts to add up, and the tables are starting to tilt. So I think that people are figuring out how to beat these guys with the system and with all of the damage that's coming in. And this again, everything is so interconnected. I think the NDP are just beginning to enter their days of being exposed in a lot of the scandals as well. And that's going to come out of the dismantling of AHS in Alberta.
I think you know what? That's a great story that you've been covering, by the way, and that you've brought to people's attention. That is absolutely fantastic. So thank you for doing that. Um, when it comes to forming these coalitions, these voting blocks that you were just talking about, we need to look at groups. Ken Drysdale, commissioner of the NCI, one of the commissioners of the NCI here in Manitoba, he's got Manitoba Stronger Together going now. So what he's doing is he's going from city to city, town to town in this province, talking to people about that. We've got Nadine Ness working with Unified Grassroots in Saskatchewan. I'm sure there are several different organizations. I think Randy Hillier is even working on one in Ontario right now. Of course, we know what happened in Alberta with Take Back Alberta, I think it was.
Yep.
Take Back Alberta is the one that got Danielle Smith elected. I have no idea, as leader of the UCP. I have no idea what is going on in British Columbia right now. Probably
Whew.
not much.
It's a
I
hot
think,
mess. It's a hot
yeah,
mess. They're
yeah.
and they're
It's a
they're
hot
looking to do the same
communist
thing.
mess.
That's two. That's two. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, how
Uh,
do we save that province, man? I mean, they are so far into the orange over there, and the red, it is absolutely appalling. I wouldn't even know where to begin.
the good news is they had that, that's the also the home of the most dangerous woman in Canadian politics, Carrie
Very,
Simpson.
yeah.
So if anybody is going to be able to rally the troops to solve that, it is that lady. And I encourage anybody that's looking to get involved in something in BC to make a difference, connect with Carrie Simpson for sure.
Yes, that's right. And I do believe we're seeing a small resurgence anyway in the power of the Progressive Conservative Party in British Columbia,
That's
because they now have one MLA in the legislature there now. I think the guy crossed from whatever the new Liberal Party is called there. What's it, Unified BC or something now? The
uh,
Liberals.
So there, yeah, I don't know at the moment, but I have been kind of keeping track of them, what they're doing, and they're playing the spoiler role there, and they're being very, very effective at that. So that again is buying time to and showing people the way and how to do things while people are reorganizing after there's endless victories going on right now, and that's something that I was been thinking about doing. Something on too, because we are seeing a lot more victories in a lot more places than people are aware of. I sit in a meeting every week with about 130 or 140 group leaders and activist leaders and journalists and the whole spectrum. Some from New Zealand, Australia, all over the place, and that's something that they focus on every week. And that list is getting longer and longer and longer and longer. A year ago, it was 2 or 3 minutes to go through the victories of the week. Now it's taking a half hour. So
That's great news.
that's something we need to keep in mind. For sure.
Absolutely. How do we get Doug Ford exposed and out in Ontario? He's a Marxist. And when I say Marxist, I'm not talking about old school communist Marxism. Duh.
No, we've got a different kind now. It's kind of a hybrid between this public-private partnership Marxism, and that's legitimately, by definition, fascism and communism getting married. So they're ultimately destined to end up in a divorce. So us offspring, best be prepared to take over the estate.
Polyev did a fantastic speech on that very thing on Bay Street, ironically, a week and a half ago, where he talks about Justin Trudeau being a Marxist, even though he doesn't use the word Marxist. He talks about government control of corporations. And it used to be that corporations and companies had to make the best product in order to be successful, or a good product for people to come and want to buy it, right? If you want Joe Smith to buy, you got to get Joe Smith's eyes on your product. But now it's all about what the government tells you to go and buy. And they're getting involved in groceries now with the grocery store CEOs. They're trying to get involved in every aspect of the market in this country and to control it, right? Media as
Yeah.
well. And that is, as Wayne just pointed out, guys, a brand new style of Marxism. It's the public private partnership that Klaus Schwab talks about, that Trudeau has now instilled in this country. And I'm wondering if these corporate CEOs are buying into this, or if they wanted to go back to the old market style approach.
It's literally the same thing as Danny Trio. And I was watching this earlier. They had Zelensky had offered him to come over there and do a little bit to promote him. And Trejo had said, "Yeah, I'll come over and we'll do you whatever you want for 100 grand." And they had said, "Okay, well, we're gonna send you 150, and you're gonna send us 50 cash back." All right, this is the essence of the public-private partnership, and every one of these political theater attendees is involved in it. And I want to address a comment out here for a second. Why are you supporting the political system? If you don't haven't figured out that the last thing we are doing here is supporting the political system, but rather shredding the political system, maybe I guess we're missing the point of what we're trying to deliver here in some of these discussions. But at the end of the day, if we don't have some form of system, we are in no state to deal with anarchy. So we have to either rebuild with some of what we got and sort through some of the good people that are trying. And I believe that there are. And that's
There's so many ways we can fix this. I mean, and Wayne and I over the past couple years, we've been through everything, I think, when we guest on each other's shows and talking about different ways we can do it. But I think one thing that we agree upon when this person makes that comment, why are you supporting the political system? What would you have us do? Are we going to move to anarchy now where it becomes feudalism? All of a sudden, now you're protecting your own little lot. And, if a guy with bigger guns comes along with more people, it winds up like The Walking Dead without the zombies. And maybe we do get the zombies thrown in for good measure. But my point is that the Marcus Rays of the world, when he was getting that plan together, he was going to go take over the RCMP detachment in Regina, right? Because that's where they do all their training. And he was trying to marshal his forces, and he had the black ops and all that stuff. I thought to myself, anybody who follows this guy is an idiot, because you don't see what's next. You are not playing chess. You are playing checkers. And worse, you've been somehow enchanted by a guy. And I will say that he's a pretty good snake oil salesman. He's a good pitch man. But ultimately, he had nothing but, and you know how I feel about this guy, Wayne, because you and
at
I
the
have
end of
had conversations.
at the end of the day, if we don't educate and inform, then the only thing left will be violence. And we are not capable of looking at it. When there is
Well,
no solution, remedy, or peaceful means to it, that's ultimately the
yeah,
only thing left. And my
it,
BB gun ain't going to stop no Stasi.
no, it's not even that. Like, think about that. Like, I'll, we've heard the guys from Veterans for Freedom talk about that over and over and over again. Never mind the violence. Let's think 5, 6, 7 moves down the road here. Okay, let's say we do go and take this building, or let's say we do move into a legislature, like what's his name was talking about. Is that David Shane? Whatever. You move into a legislature or some courthouse in Toronto or Edmonton or whatever, and you say the judge is we're gonna have a case right now. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. What do you think is going to happen aside from the building being surrounded by about 300 cops from all over the province? And then what? And then what? And then what? And then what? Let's say you do successfully manage to take over the country and you do manage to successfully oust all of these duly elected officials. Well, maybe not duly elected because we're in a de facto situation, but you know what I'm talking about. The people think that they are the elected representatives, and so they are, because perception is reality. But the bottom line is, now what? Right? Okay,
I
so
really
now we control Canada. So we have to get all the other countries in the world to recognize the fact that we are the ones who are now in control of this government. No, it
I
doesn't
think
work like that. You got to get them from
I
the
think
inside, just like they've gotten us from the inside. And that's what we're doing now. And that's what Wayne and I have
100%.
been talking about with all of these grassroots movements. So it's not about supporting the political, or sorry, when they say supporting the political system or the political parties?
The system, supporting politics, endorsing, and that's not it at all. At the end of the day, for me, I look at Venezuela and I know what happened there over the last 20, 30 years, and I know what they're going to go through in the next 10. And I don't want that for my country. And that is ultimately, it's that or North Korea. So,
This is about
talking
hearts
about
and minds. This is about hearts and minds. This is about winning the soul of this country back. What does it mean? And this is something else that we can talk about in our What's in Store for 24 if you want. What is the way to capture the heart and soul of the Canadian, the average Canadian? How do we do that? Trudeau has done such a good job of creating so many divisions. I mean, it's like chopping an onion with that guy. Like,
That's the key. We look at the wedge subjects and start doing surgery on those specific wedges.
yeah, because he chops
That's
us into one section and then we move into a different, and pretty soon we're like this big. And it's awful. So where is the tie that binds Nova Scotians with Albertans, with Saskatchewanians, with Manitobans, Ontarians? Where do we find that? And I don't want to hear hockey, and I don't want to hear Tim Hortons.
no, I think it's more along the lines of exactly what we're doing here right now, having an interesting civil discussion, not necessarily agreeing on everything, but being able to have that discussion about challenging things. And that, I think, is it still boils down to that innate sense of freedom. You know, every animal has it. And whether you believe the science or not, we are still mammals. We are still animals. We have self-preservation. We have things that we know are inherently good for us and are not good for us. And this is where it's taking us closer and closer to that base core of who we are as a species. And once this gender bender wedge is resolved, and this is the thing too, everybody wants the silver bullet. Well, sorry, folks, it's not my fault. All of our parents and all of our grandparents and all of our great grandparents dropped the ball and left us in this mess. Our only choice is to fix this mess while we're here, or your kids or your grandkids are going to be stuck with a way worse mess to fix. So
Yeah.
there's no silver bullet, and this is what we need to get our hands dirty in the work, and that's part of, again, of that growing up and taking responsibility.
Well, yeah, and it's hearts and minds too. We have to go, and I think maybe it's going to be time sometime next year for another cross country adventure for us, Wayne. I think we're going to probably have to go out and seriously, like, go and meet people,
I,
go
I agree.
I mean, that's the way to do it. And I think that, you and I are a couple of prominent voices within this that people may respect. And so we are now responsible for trying to bring people together uh, in a way that maybe others can't, or just at least alert them to what is going on behind the scenes,
It's
the things they may not know about.
It's
Um,
interesting you bring that up because there's a lot of thirst for that, not just here. I've been invited to be a keynote speaker at a major event in Pittsburgh to it's a major fundraiser for the J6 defendants. And the whole point of bringing me in there is to shatter the image of the Green Acre complex that America has, because there's such a huge thirst for that real raw ground grassroots truth down there, that people are starting to see and learn from the people that are touching base down there. And I do a fair amount of work with Americans down there too, and I actually was on a program yesterday, and it's that 12-minute segment that I did yesterday turned around and turned into a dozen different streams, and I was having to bounce around for the last couple of days doing interviews about this interview that I did yesterday and talk about. So this is really encouraging to me, about this kind of thirst for what we the people are doing, not what what they're seeing and hearing, because they know that's all bunk too. So
I
it's
think,
interesting.
guys watching this, that this is probably the most positive conversation you and I have had on air ever.
I
And
agree. I think it is, and we haven't had a lot to be optimistic about. A little spark here, a little spark there, but again, it's having a patience to understand that it's going to take us a lot of time. That was some things that we talked about 2 years ago already too. We were so disorganized, and that's
no,
starting to bear fruit now.
also,
It's a bit everywhere.
it's about living your life too, right? I mean, we've all been in this fight a long time. I think I brought this up maybe on my show or earlier on yours here, and some people are tired and they're going to want to take a break. whether it's a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever it takes. I suggest that if you need to do that, then you go ahead and do that. We'll pick up the slack for you, and we'll wait with bated breath, seriously, for you to return. And hopefully, you bring a couple or three more people with you when you come back. We're going to keep going here. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep winning hearts and minds all across our country. And ultimately, we are going to win this. And I have no idea how it looks at the end of all of this, but it looks a heck of a lot better than what it looked like a year ago or 2 years ago. And we've got 1,000 miles yet to walk. So we're going to keep going. And hopefully you guys come with us, because it's all about the journey too. Sometimes you actually have to stop and look and go, what a great time to be alive.
It's the most interesting, and that's there's stuff to look forward to that I see coming down the pipe, and quote that from Rush Limbaugh. Actually, it doesn't matter whether it's Trudeau or Pierre or whatever the case might be. We're not going anywhere. We, the people, are not going anywhere. So we can continue to live in what they give us, or we can fix it. And Canadians have had enough. And I think that we're seeing legitimate effort and results starting to bear fruit. And that just took some time. So
one thing I will
think
recommend, if I can, to people, because I'm going to have to get going pretty quick. One thing I want to recommend to people is, if you're feeling bitter or you're feeling left out, don't be. First of all, we can't get to everybody. We're trying our best to get to everybody, but please don't feel bitter and left out, because all that's going to create is animosity towards others, and then it starts to permeate itself through comments in shows like this one, or just your general demeanor in a day, and it puts you in a negative space. And what we need right now, like, this is the first question that Wayne asked me tonight was, do you feel that there's far more activity going on with the media? And I think they're ramping up for an election. There is no doubt of that. But I also feel with every passing day that we are gaining more positive energy every single day. And that's outside of the Christmas spirit that people are feeling right now. This is positive energy moving towards the future. When we start to see people like Klaus Schwab complaining about us, and we did see that the other day, because there's just people out there, they don't want to be part of this, right? He's mad. Yep. And we know that we're the ones that have caused that, not us particularly, but the people in general have caused that thorn in his side. And we're going to continue to cause more thorns in more sides until we get our way.
The court of public opinion is starting to adjourn planet-wide, and that's just going to take a lot more time yet, folks. Bear with it. Take the rest you need, and taking the time to sharpen your arrows and get rested and get some sleep. And we'll see you on the front lines when you get back. 100%. Thanks for this. You were supposed to come on for 15 minutes. I pretty much had a whole show lined up that we've covered a lot of it.
How long has it been? Has it been like an hour? Is it an hour?
Almost. It's 25 after.
Oh my God! I'm so sorry.
See what happens? No, it's all good. It's all good. We covered a lot.
I took up all your valuable time, brother.
No, I took up all of yours. I'm shocked, actually. I actually wasn't even sure you might show up. I know what it's like, but no, it's been good, and I think that this. One of the things that I'm excited about too is over the holiday break. You're a legacy media guy for years. Typically, those places are ghost towns. So what we're going to be doing collectively as an independent media ecosystem is going to be new, unique, and that's going to be an opportunity for us to take over the media waves while the corporate Marxist media are on cruise control for the holidays, playing reruns. So if you're not following, liked, and subscribed to us yet, do this right now, please. And if you haven't shared and you haven't laughed, well, then I'm sorry. But if you have laughed and you have gotten a nugget, give it a share. And you're going to see a whole bunch of this in between the Christmas break and
That'd be good.
the
It's gonna be
New
fun.
Year.
Looking forward to this. It's gonna be a
For
good time.
sure, we'll strategize a little bit of that out. And this is a perfect case in point. We can't have 10 Conor McGregors like you on here at the same time. Nobody's going to get any ice time. So I'm thinking of maybe doing a half hour overlap where they get a half hour to compare notes.
No
and
way,
and
man. We got to do it all at one time, all at once. And if there's too much crosstalk, well, that's the problem. That's a problem. It's fine. You know what? The loudest one wins then. Hey,
it'll be a
are you
blast.
gonna bring
Either way.
Patriot Smoothie on? Patriot Smoothie out of Ottawa. Let's see if we can get him on because he's a good guy, good young guy, good young broadcaster, good young journalist. He's been covering the Tamara Leach Chris Barber trial out there in Ottawa, and he had a lot of good stuff. And I think he was out there doing some stuff in the convoy as well. He's got a lot of good thoughts. I think we should bring him on. Just a suggestion, but
Oh, this is going to be, if people are out there doing good work as pundits, we want to know about it. I've got Jason Shepard, founder of Wimkin. He sees a lot down there. He's coming on. We've got confirmed.
oh, good. I
Uh,
can tell him that his name sucks. He needs a new one. I've been meaning to tell him that for 2 years.
uh,
Jason, your name sucks. Wimkin sucks. Like, get a better name.
well, you can do that. We've got Chris Bleck and Jody Ledgerwood from TFM Report. They're coming. Obviously, yourself. I haven't got confirmations back, but this was really just something that started a couple of days ago. So I've been trying to play catch-up mode after a whole bunch of crazy week stuff. But
What about
yeah,
Levine? You got Jason Levine?
I think that we talked about it a little bit today. So a lot of these guys that do what we do, this is their only chance for that 5 minute break too. And that's the last thing I want to do is take away from anybody's friends and family over that break, because I know how much they put into it. But you'll see some more of the others from the LGM platform.
You gotta be
So
kidding
yeah,
me. Like, you think that these people are not going to want to step away from their families for an hour over
I
Christmas?
know it. You know it. Yeah, yeah.
Come on, man.
I'm
Like, I
trying.
had enough of
I'm
that
trying to
stuff
be.
already. Too many screaming
I'm,
kids and Uncle Roger drinking his brandy and smoking his cigars while he's got his
well,
hand down your
that's
sister's
Brock.
skirt. I don't
That's
think
Brock
so.
Schneider from the Wendy Bell Network. But it's going to be a blast. I'm trying to be a little bit coy here on some of the people we're talking to, but I'm sure it'll be an internationally attended event for
Throw
sure.
some
So
names
it'll be
around, man. This is good that we throw names around. Get people excited because we're going to get them. They're going to come on. They're going to come on with us, and they're going to talk about what's in store for 24. It's going to be fun. I'm
so
looking forward to it.
probably the biggest one I'm chasing is that people would know Viva Fry. I'd like to
Get them.
have him on. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
bring 'em.
So yep, for
Cool.
sure. So.
Well, now if he doesn't show up, people are going to be disappointed. Okay, I got to go. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Shadow. Oh, wow, that was an unexpected delight. Kind of blew out of the water some of the stuff that I was wanted to cover. Yeah, he is in Florida. Yeah, so what do you want me to do, guys? This is like late. Do you want me to throw some comments out there? Do you want me to kind of take a 10-second walk across some of the stories that I did have lined up to throw out there, or do you guys want to come back tomorrow night and do it all over again with some? I see a stay on over there. All right, we're gonna do it. We're gonna talk about a little bit more of the stuff that it's kind of important. It's going to kind of bounce around a little bit, and I'm going to kind of take us to an end with some of the guests that are going to be coming up next week and some of the shows I'm going to be doing. But this one right here, I wanted to bring up right now. This, I got to make sure I pull it up on the screen that I can actually run the video. There we go. I want you all to hear this, because this is kind of the beginning of the narrative from around the world, I did see that somebody was looking for, the time of accountability. That's going to take a little while yet, but I promise you, there will be a day of accountability. And this message, I think, is worth hearing.
This is a huge crime. And when you learn from a doctor that you're dying slowly, it's not fun. I ask everybody who's been injected, look, have no fear, first of all. Second, I think you should come out with this. Go to your doctors, try to find out what the damage is. And I hope there's not, of course. But this is poison that got injected. Do your police reports, talk to your MPs. Stop this machine, WHO, that is advising such stuff to be injected. For me, they're disqualified. And if I only can say this, the good thing about this only case against Pfizer running now is that it might stop the WHO, which is not a health organization.
Okay, now what he said there is very important, and I'll just spend a minute in explaining why. It's not a health organization, it's a corporation. And this is literally what people are starting to realize across the country and across the world, is that these things are not organizations. They have no jurisdiction. They are simply corporations and need to be addressed as such. And if we are not using the accurate language in that jurisdiction, they don't understand it, and it goes nowhere, right? So that is one of the big things that when Shadow mentioned a story that I had been covering in over the past week. I just lost my screen there, so bear with me. Over the past week, it's about the case in Alberta about Stacey's Happy Place. So I'm going to just pull this up and kind of give you guys a bit of a once over on some of the stuff that happened over the week, as I said earlier. So you might want to go pick something to go back and chew on over the weekend. So obviously there's tonight's show. I did a 2-hour spot with this panel of journalists, and I know that there's some controversy around some of us. And I'm just going to say I'm not addressing the controversy because I have no information. But that being said, I am researching and I do want to come to the bottom of whatever is going on. But that was a very good cross section of amazing gold nuggets of different voices without controversy. A really great discussion. I did have a 12-minute video of the segment that I did with Wendy Bell on her network yesterday, and I'll pull that up and play that right at the end for people if they want to stick around and listen to that, because it is 12 minutes. But the essence of this was the first time that Americans radio had, and it's not just her network. This also goes out across Newsmax as well. That they really started to understand the magnitude of what the MAID program is here in Canada, the medical assistance in dying. And for those of you that aren't aware out there, that's now the number 6th leading cause of death in Canada is at the hands of the state. And I've been getting reports and video clippings from people around the world where Canada, they're marketing this around the world, and Canada is now becoming the tourist destination of choice for euthanasia. So that is the reputation that this regime is nurturing outside of our country. That is what people are recognizing about Canada. So I will play that clip right at the tail end for folks. But this is the big story for me, because this one is that hearts and minds. These two ladies have been fighting with such dignity and grace for 3 years straight. The COVID lockdown measures never stopped for them. Just this past Thanksgiving, they were basically raided, but under the guise of inspection 3 different times on Thanksgiving. It's a bookshop that sells coffee that will not back down from the Stasi. And so over the course of the last week and a half, this past Monday, so 4 days ago. And this is where the part 3 was the exclusive interview on that. They were in a court hearing, and this was so offensive to anybody with a conscience. They were in the court hearing where the court was going to decide that for potential upcoming court costs for 2 hearings that were coming up yet, that they wanted to secure $27,000 worth of court costs from this little bookshop owner in case of them losing this case. And in that, they were preparing to look at seizing her property in lieu of those $27,000 worth of court costs. Well, about 10 days ago, we started to talk to the public and asking them to go and bear witness at the courthouse peacefully and to serve as jury duty as witness to what the courts were doing in Alberta. Well, on Monday, the Court of Public Opinion turned up. And the courthouse was full, not just the courtroom, but the entire courthouse was full. And I think, and so does Lanny the lawyer and Stacey, that this made an impact on the judge, where the decision of the day, although not a total victory, resolved down to them being stuck with having to secure $3,500 for each one of these cases moving forward. And these are important cases because what these ladies have done have laid open, bare, in public record, all of the crime and corruption of AHS. Now, this plays to a bigger story where Danielle Smith is being criticized for suggesting that she would dismantle the AHS. Well, this story provides every absolute justification for them to do that. They need to do that. The sooner they do that, the better. And we can get back to health services. But that agency is nothing more than a corporation. It is on record, and that is the essence of what that they're doing here in Alberta. So for us, what that means is we needs to help them with a give, send, go. And that was one of the things that I promised these ladies, is that they weren't going to lose their house or their Christmas or their sleep. So pretty much every day until the 1st of January, until we've reached the $7,000 goal, I want this family to have the peace and the rest that they need to move forward for this fight representing Albertans and small business owners. This is incredibly powerful. So if you are in a position to help these ladies, please do so. I will copy and put a link. Oh, I guess you guys didn't see that, did you? Oh, my bad. See, it's late. Okay, Save Stacey's Happy Place. We have a give, send, go that we helped them get going. This is the Lawyers for Truth are handling the money. There is absolutely nothing to do with anybody else in between. This goes to, as I said, the Lawyers for Truth, which is looking after this for them. All I did was help them get it set up and running, and I'm going to chirp about it until they have a little bit of peace in their life. So that was that one. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, Shadow and I briefly did, was the petition. That was the reason why they wanted my segment on the radio yesterday. They're curious about what this is all about and the implications. So now we're also going to be getting a lot of support from those that are able to help and support our discussion down in the States. And I forgot to do that again. I'll get this figured out yet, guys. And then I have to remove my mug. If I can. No. We'll get it. So yesterday morning at 10:30 Central, when I reported real time live, there was 311,000 signatures on this. I just refreshed, and we are at 330. So that is 19,000 signatures in the last 18 hours, guys. So that is something that doesn't take more than a second to do, and you guys can have an impact there as well. So I'll drop the link for that in the chats as well. For those of you, make it easy to find. Go on over and just take a minute and let your voice be heard. And that brings up another point that I wanted to bring up. Now, that petition is about Trudeau specifically. I wanted to bring up this other petition from Leslyn Lewis. And again, I don't have any delusions about remedy from petitions, but they are an outlet for us to show our common will and our common mindset, what is important and matters to us. And this is something that I think is important to as well. It closes on February 7th. This is the one that is basically demanding Canada's membership be removed from the United Nations and all of its subsidiary organizations. So if I had to weigh the scale of importance between these two petitions, the one to vote of non-confidence for Trudeau, that's an emergency Band-Aid petition. Feel good. Yeah, do it up. But the one we should be putting the work into and paying attention to have the effect to organize people under legitimate language is this one here from Leslyn Lewis. So I'm going to drop the link for this petition in the chats as well for you guys. And I am running out of stuff here now. I kind of skipped over this stuff, and I hope I gave you guys enough to make sense out of this. If you've signed them both, fantastic. This is a great opportunity to share it again to somebody that hasn't heard of it, doesn't know about it, hasn't seen it yet. And let's keep the discussion going, if nothing else. And I appreciate for all of you guys doing that as well. A couple of real last minute things here that I'm going to throw out here now then is, you'll remember that Doctor Talk series, 45 of the biggest medical voices in North America and maybe the world in some cases, shutting down, fighting against the COVID narrative. Well, Dr. Stephen Pellick, one of the most formidable among them, has spearheaded a team to write and create this book. You're not going to see an author listed on the title because there is, I think it's something like 20 contributing authors and experts into this book. So I'll get a link to that out a little later on. We'll be talking about this, and what I'm going to be doing is I'll reach out to Dr. Pellick, a friend of mine, and we'll get him on to talk about it. This isn't being launched for another 6 months, but I think it's important to know that these guys are doing things in different ways and if we express interest, I think that there's some book runs here, so we might be able to get it earlier if there's enough support for that. On Sunday, Revolution Radio, guys, Barry Prince. I want to give a shout out to Barry. He's been an alternative media radio host for I think 15 years or something like that, and he doesn't get a lot of recognition on our streaming platforms. He's a bit of an old school guy, but every couple times a month I join him on a Sunday evening, 6 p.m. Central, and we have a really great conversation. And that's another way to get something new and fresh and get to meet a different community. And the last thing, I think, and I don't have a link or a screenshot for that. I was not prepared to go this long. I thought I'd have time to grab one during the show. But we're having a private Patriot Zoom party tomorrow at 4 p.m. Central, 5 Eastern, and we're going to explain one-on-one, answer all of the questions of how our little community of patriots is taking $250,000 away from BlackRock and the cabal. And not only that, how we're all getting paid to do it too. This is, guys, this has been one of the most surreal experiences of my life, understanding and seeing things in action that make that kind of impact. So if you're still here and you want to get an invite to that, it's RSVP. I'll put some notifications up on these platforms again tomorrow, but send me a message. Reach out to me on my one of my platforms. Send me a private message, an email, and I will make sure, or my manager will make sure that you get an invite to this event at 4 o'clock tomorrow. And from I've only been with doing this for a couple of months now, and to see that kind of an impact, and this goes back to the Disney story and the Gillette story and the Bud Light story, that's happening for a reason permanently. And this tomorrow is exactly how we're doing that. So a lot more coming up this coming week. I've got some big guests coming up, working on scheduling with Tom Marazzo, Eva Chipiuk, and Jimmy Serum, which is leading. He's kind of like he's leading the charge from Germany for an independent media coalition. So that's where it's, again, talking about bridging gaps, different places. People are connecting, getting more organized all over the planet, all over the world, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. One last thing, I'm going to throw this up here because I should have had it up there the whole day. If anybody was going to plan to send us a donation this month, I ask, take a picture of that screenshot, or that, I'm all messed up here, that QR code. Get a link to Stacey's Happy Place. Any donation that you guys were considering to sending our platform, send there in lieu of What's Up Canada. Send them a message on behalf of whatever the case might be. If you want to be anonymous, fantastic. But my Christmas goal is to let Stacey and her family have the same kind of Christmas I wish for all of you to have. So with that, I have kept you far too long. My voice is starting to disappear. It's been a long time since I did 15 hours worth of shows in a day, but here we are, glitching out. I love y'all. Stay strong, stay Canadian, and you'll hear from me tomorrow somewhere down the road, I'm sure, outside of the private meeting. Get your links. Don't forget about doing that, and we'll see you next week. Love y'all. Stay Canadian.